If I'm trying to think like a scientist when designing a pedal, you want to have as many controls as possible. One of those controls is the sound of the guitar that you're using. I got into the NYXLs. They last longer, they work better, and they stay in tune for longer. Just a lot of things that make my life easier.
Hey everyone, this is Chris Kies for Premier Guitar. I am joined today by Christian from the band Whores. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Real good, man. Thanks to Big Blair for Eastside Music Supply letting us hang out, invade their space, come see their wares, buy some stuff. But anyways, this is a cool opportunity for us to hang and talk. It doesn't happen very often, but I actually got to see your band perform last night, and it didn't work out for us to film before the show there at Cobra, but talking now. And so I want to start with that being the focus of my first question being, it seems you're such a nice guy.
Oh, thank you.
Easy to talk to.
Yeah.
We've talked for years. This is the first time we met in person. But it seems so cathartic for you on stage because it's the antithesis of what you otherwise represent.
Yeah.
So like explain what you enjoy about not only performing, which has taken a toll on your body, but also just plugging into this ferocious, tidal wave of sound we're going to learn about. So tell me about that.
I mean, I realize how silly this is. Like, it's really over the top. But I've been like a punk since I was a kid, and I'm really into like actively cultivating like the '60s science teacher look, because it's like a hustle. You know what I mean? Like, I look like this mild-mannered dad, and then you come see the band, and you're like, what is happening? So I'm real fortunate to be able to play in a band that we can just yell and scream and jump around and play really loud and all that stuff. So like the rest of my normal life, I'm fine. I'm like really pretty mild-mannered, because I've got this pressure valve. So like I'm pretty happy dude, But I don't know. I don't think I would be the same person if I wasn't doing this full time, because it really is. It's the most important thing to me in my life. Like I can't even front. It's number one.
And like you've said before, when we did that, we got to do it kind of from afar. We did the
COVID,
rundown. And you had said that all this stuff is not necessary, but rock and roll is not necessary. Right. This is for you to enjoy, and you're very unabashed about your. This is for me.
Yeah.
I don't even care about the audience. Obviously, we're getting pummeled by DBs, but this is for you. That you enjoy this.
I know the audience can't tell the difference. That doesn't matter to me. It's like such a specious reasoning to say like no one can tell the difference. Like I can tell the difference, and that's my first concern. It's not that I don't care what if people enjoy it or not. It's just like necessity is not part of the equation at all. It's stuff that I like and stuff that makes me happy. And I mean, I've had a couple different lifetimes and a couple different like paths in life, and this is the thing that makes me feel most like myself. So I refuse to say no to it ever. So it's like more.
Yeah.
I mean, that new guitar that I'll show you in a minute is guitar number 20. It's like,
who would have thought your former self would have known all those years ago that you'd be racking up 20.
Yeah, I don't know. It's pretty weird. And pedals too, like 200 probably.
Yeah.
Probably close to 200.
You're ready to open the store.
Kinda. I'm real bad with records too. Same thing. Like I have a wall in my apartment that's just records.
No, okay. I want to ask it because we just did our first. We did it hasn't come out yet, but we did a tour of a vinyl pressing plant here in town, and I learned about it because before I was just a dummy that bought them, and I was curious because the new record that just came out, War, check it out, is at 33 minutes. And
Yeah.
I learned through that process of pressing is that there's an optimal length on a record where the dynamics are at their best or most pure, and before it starts tapering off based on trying to cram so much information and time into it. Was that a consideration when you guys came and wrote the record because you're such a audiophile?
Definitely, I definitely think about that stuff. But we wrote and recorded like 13 songs for that record, but there's only 9 on the record just because the other ones just weren't good enough.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, we've had, compared to other bands, we haven't had tons and tons of releases, but I can also stand behind every single song that we released. When we did our first couple EPs, those were put out on 12-inch records, but at 45 RPM. We could have done 7 inches for them, but they sound better that way. So it's kind of a bummer to do that at 45 with 12 inches. People have to get up and flip them and stuff, but they just sound better. There's just nothing to it. But I'm definitely aware of like vinyl time per side, what sounds best and stuff like that. So we certainly thought about that. Because it starts just compressing and compressing and compressing. You can still fit it on there, but it just won't sound as good. And it definitely matters to me for sure.
Yeah, those inner songs, like song 4, track 3 or 4, when they get close to the inner circle, it tapers off in terms of quality. I didn't realize that.
We had a pressing done of one of the EPs, the clean EP. I'm not sure which pressing it was, but someone at the plant sped it up like 5%. And after it was out, I like put it on because I trusted someone else to do the what do you call it? Test pressing, to listen to the test pressing. What you're supposed to do is A/B it with the digital file, just so it's, sounds the same. It's a different master for vinyl versus digital or whatever. But I just trusted him and I shouldn't have. And yeah, it was like chipmunky. I was like, are you serious, dude? So we just went like, throw these all away right now. Like I will not sell that to someone knowing that it's unacceptable, dude.
Yeah.
So we don't work with them anymore.
Well, let's dive into the rig because there's a lot to talk about, and let's start with the Esquire. How did you get there in terms of plugging that into these? So let's start. Why Esquire?
Well, I'm sober. I've been sober as of June 10th, 21 years. When I got sober, I didn't have a guitar because usually people who get sober, it's not great before you get sober. So I didn't have any real equipment. Actually, I still had this slant cabinet, which I've had for a long time. But I didn't have a guitar, and I was working at this coffee shop, and a buddy of mine was selling a Telecaster, which is over there. I'll grab it in a second. So I bought that from him for like $400, and then the band started touring a lot. I needed a backup, so I went to this store in Atlanta, and they didn't have I wanted a white one just because I wanted a white one.
Yeah.
And they didn't have a white Telecaster, but it had a white Esquire. So that one's at home. That's like really, really beat up. It needs a lot of work. So I bought this Esquire and then realized that what this switching thing does is very different than a Telecaster. Like a lot of people thought it was just a Telecaster with one pickup, but it's not. The back position just goes straight to the volume and the tone is bypassed, so it's a bit louder than it would be had it gone through the tone circuit. The middle position is like what a Tele bridge would be, meaning that volume and tone are both active. Okay. And then this forward position, the tone is again pulled out, but there's a capacitor that gives it a bass boost, so it's crazy dark sounding, like it's really like murky sounding, but if you go, sounds sick.
Yeah.
And that tone with a more trebly guitar tone would be obnoxious, but you start with a super murky tone and put like crispy fuzz stuff on it, a lot of mid-range on it, and the combination is super pleasing sounding. So it's just a happy accident.
Yeah.
And then I had that, I'll grab it. I had the Telecaster that I initially bought turned into an Esquire. So the wiring is all changed, so it's Esquire wiring. This is, it says Telecaster, but, and there's a route under there, but I just, and then got like a 3-saddle bridge, although I prefer the 6-saddle ones. This is really rusty and messed up. This guitar's
dude,
seen some.
that's gnarly.
The sticker on the back is kind of crazy because when I bought it for my friend Dan, he had put that sticker on the guitar. And another friend of mine, Calvin Florian, has been shooting a documentary about the band for the last 2 years. And he saw that guitar and he's like, where did you get that guitar? And I said, oh, I bought it from Dan. And he was like, I sold it to Dan. That's my old guitar.
That's full circle.
Yep. And because of the sticker, he was like, that's 100% my old guitar.
Well,
weird.
I got to run back to the 6-saddle. How did you get there? Because the last time we talked, I think you got maybe some of these parts off of like Amazon.
Oh, yeah.
Like, okay, so is that where you got that bridge?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so our band does
Owned
a lot.
by Bezos.
Pardon?
Toned by Bezos.
Yeah, he's a monster. But anyway, I'm not going to take down Amazon by myself. So
Yeah.
Whatever. So we do a lot of like bar chords up in this area, and with a 3-saddle bridge, it'll intonate perfectly up to about 5, 6, 7 area. Once you get up here, chords get a little wonky. If you're playing single notes, it's fine. It's no big deal. And I really prefer the look of the 3-saddle bridge. It's just more traditional. But I have to be able to intonate each string individually because of the intensity with which we play and the volume and stuff. If it's like a little off, you hear it.
Yeah.
Plain as day, man. So I had to get a 6-saddle one, and I like the brass saddles a lot. And I searched like all the rad, boutique builders. And I just couldn't find a 6-saddle ashtray that would fit this. So I just literally Googled 6-saddle ashtray bridge, and I bought one from Amazon. And now I have them on 2 of my guitars. I mean, and they're not great, but like brass is brass. It's not like it's an alloy of different percentage metals. It's 100% brass, so it's going to be the same. Mm-hmm. And they get a little worn because it's pretty soft metal, but to my ear, they sound better than the stainless steel ones or the, what's that material, that tusk material? It's like a real hard plastic or whatever. Mm-hmm. They're great, but the brass just sounds better, man. I don't know what it is. I'm sure someone with more knowledge could tell me what it actually scientifically is, but they sound better,
What about the pickup?
This is a reproduction. So when I first got that white Esquire, the pickup that came with it was really weak relative to the pickup that was in my Telly. I mean, it had to have been not half, but weak. And so, and because it was meant as a backup, it needed to be as close as possible. So I said to a friend of mine, Ted Lethang is his name. I was complaining about it basically, because I love to complain about things. And he said, I've got one that's just in a box, like a pickup, with really big slugs in it and really big magnet. And that was a Mark Knopfler Walk of Life pickup. I think the last time we did this, Schecter made them. I said it was a 500T, but the 500T is the 500 is the Strat pickup. It's 520T, the Schecter one that Mark Knopfler makes, Walk of Life they called it. They don't make those anymore, but Harry Husel in Germany makes them. So I just buy like 4 or 5 at a time because they're, I think they're like 80, 90 euro. So, $100, something like that. And I sweat a lot when I play, so the magnets will start corroding. So I just I have one in my spare one in my road case in case it happens, because I just love the way they sound. So those pickups are, I want to say they're like maybe 10K. They're really, really loud.
Wow.
But they also, you can tap them, which is how he used them. But I don't tap them. I just have it 100% wired too. So it's louder than you'd expect it to be. We get that a lot. People are like, how are you getting that sound out of this thing? And it's all just a series of
all the dominoes.
Yeah, it wasn't like intentional. It just piece by piece kind of came together over the last 10 years or so.
How often or through the set are you using the 3-way, or is it bridge, to get to different sounds and for like a regular set like I saw last night?
Yeah.
Are you trying to use all 3 positions?
I usually only use the forward position on one part of one song, where it's just kind of a dropout, where it's just guitar, and it's like, I can show you the part.
Yeah.
Actually. It's really dark, but it's like.
Maybe while we had that sound just fresh in our brain, what was happening there?
That is the Swarm from Beetronics. It's like a PLL style pedal. Earthquaker Devices makes the Data Corruptor. It's similar. Schumann PLL is the kind of the OG of those, but those are super expensive. So it's a fuzz, and it has an oscillator, and it's like a synth, and it has different. It's like an octave fuzz with a synth attached to it, a synth oscillator. I've also noticed that when you play it, you need to back the volume off like to 9, because if you have it on, it'll gate well. If you have it all the way, it does that, but if you just come off it a little bit, it gates better, which is obnoxious, but that's just one little dropout part. When we record, I use the forward position a lot because we can EQ it differently, and Ryan, who records us, can do that. But live, it's usually this back position, which is the full volume, and then the forward just for some dropout parts where it's guitar only, because it is so murky. If there's other instruments happening, you'll just get lost. But if it's by itself, it's really pleasing sounding.
Yeah. You brought up Ryan. I know that you've worked with him since the Clean EP, right?
Yep.
What do you enjoy about having his partnership in this?
He's kind of a fourth member of the band, and I've said that to his face. I mean, we're not like, big superstars or anything, but the limited success we have enjoyed is in large part due to him, because he's very talented. He's really fun to hang out with too, but like...
That helps.
Yeah. I met him because Jake, who used to play in the band, was in another band that had recorded with Ryan, and when we wanted to record something, he was just gonna hook it up because he was friends with Jake. So we went in there to record, did the basic tracking, and then my bandmates both left, and it was just me and Ryan, like sitting in the control room for like a week. So we just became really good friends, and that was like 2013, like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And now, like, I talked to him today already. Like we're like best friends. It's he's really great, but he calls himself the Juice Weasel. When he does little like Pro Tools moves and stuff, he's like, let the Juice Weasel work. Like, he's really fast, He's super fun to hang out with. We both like, 80s comedies, Caddyshack and Revenge of the Nerds and Meatballs and stuff. So we have like a pretty silly friendship, but yeah, and first and foremost is that he's super talented and he understands what the band is. A lot of times we'll get people, and God bless them, will send us like, hey, I'd like to do art for the band, and it'll be like dragons, and like it's just not what we're not dragons, man. And he gets that. He gets, like, he grew up on, Helmet and Jesus Lizard and Melvins and all these bands that we obviously love. He just understands the band. Like, it sounds pretentious, but philosophically, he understands what we're trying to do.
Yeah. So
we have a shorthand that I don't have with other people, or I have to explain it, or I'll say, like, can you make it sound like, whatever touchstone, and they won't even know what I'm talking about. He and I have a shorthand that just saves a lot of time. But I waste a lot of his time too. In the studio, we screw around nonstop. We did the thing on the end of on the new record, War, is like this Muzak kind of version of one of the riffs in a song that's on the record, and we were just screwing around, and we were just doing this. The riff goes like this kind of swingy riff. Yeah. But then we did this, like, it's one of those Teenage Engineering keyboards. It just goes do 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 do, and then we put like a crummy drum beat behind it and some noise, so it sounded like a elevator music or something. And then Bill Kelleher from Mastodon reads the credits over that silliness. Yeah, but that didn't. We didn't try to do that. We were just screwing around, and we recorded it. And we were like, we should put that on the record. The beginning of the record starts the same way. Like, Douglas and I were, is the drummer, we're just screwing around at practice, and we started to play this riff, and note one, I played the wrong note, and I was like, oh, hold on. And he stops, and he just goes, fuck! And then we both start laughing, and then the record starts. Because the music is such like sad, angry, whatever. I think levity is a really important part of the band to understand that, yes, we write these songs, but we're not these dour people. It's just we're doing for that, but that's not who we are really. So we screw around a lot is the take home for that, which is fun. Yeah. I don't know. He has a Mr. Microphone. He has tons of ridiculous equipment. I'd say screwing around is probably 60-40. We're screwing around to working. So yeah, he's a good dude. His studio's down in Tampa now. It was in Atlanta back in the day. But yeah, it's weird that he's like my bro. I mean, he's worked on Foo Fighters records, At the Drive-In records, Fu Manchu, Melvins, Helmet, Eels. I mean, and he's like my bro. It's crazy. Yeah. It's cool though.
That's how I feel about Perry and Jared. I get to hang out with these guys. They're fun.
It's important. Yeah. The work is a part of it, but the hang is a huge part of it.
Oh, it's what breaks it or makes it.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
So what about tunings and strings?
Okay, so all the band guitars, or all the songs on all the records, with the exception of one song, are tuned to drop C, which is CGC-FAD. There's a song on the Clean EP that's tuned down lower than that to a dropped G. So it's the same basic tuning, except this big string is dropped down to G, so it's two Gs next to each other. And then the picks are these Derlin Diodario picks. It's a 70 millimeter. Okay. And then the strings are also Diodario, these New York XL. I assume NY stands for New York. NYXL, 13 to 56. It's a wound G, so it's 26. But for me, it's an F. But yeah, I played their before they made these NYXLs, I was playing their, I think it's J26, the same gauges, 13 to 56 for years and years and years and years. And we were trying so hard to get somebody to give us free strings for years, and people just won't touch us because of the name, I think, and also because it kind of sucks sometimes. That's not, I'm just kidding, that's not true. But like we tried really hard, and you know, and I just gave up. And as soon as I gave up, they came calling. I was like, yes. That's kind of through Carl, our manager. Like he has a deal with all of his bands so we can just go on their inner circle site and get stuff at like, it's like, I want to say 30% of retail. It's really cheap.
Well, not only are they doing you a solid, they do us a solid by sponsoring the Rig Rundown.
Awesome.
So today's Rig Rundown and all Rig Rundowns brought to you by D'Addario and Eastside Music Supply for all your guitar playing needs.
I didn't even know that was the case. I'm not trying to be a shill.
No,
I'm
being a shill. They help get my paycheck put in the mail.
Yeah, it's super. That's sick of them to help us with this. But I didn't even know that about D'Addario. But it's just funny that like I was willing to play a brand that I didn't even like just to get a break on them, and then once I gave up, which is I think the take home for that, just give up. It's like the Simpsons we were talking about earlier. The lesson here is never try. As soon as I was like, fine, then now I have.
They come knocking.
They're like $4 a pack. I think they're 12 retail or something like that. Like, yeah, it's great. And then we get Evans and ProMark stuff too from them too for drums. So it's a good deal.
I noticed, and I'm sure this is on purpose because of how hard you attack the strings. You have a light pick hitting those thick gauge strings because otherwise I'm imagining you're going sharper, you know, out of tune quicker.
Yeah, I used to use the 60s, the orange ones. I graduated to these guys pretty recently. I would say like the last 3 or 4 years. But that's exactly what it is. Yeah, when I've tried to play with like a 1 millimeter or what is it? 70? So it's 0.7. So yeah, 1 millimeter pick is just like bow. It just sounds really bad just because of the nature of how I play. I'm sure if I was playing leads and stuff that would be cool, but I mean you were at the show, you saw it's just ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's just so yeah, it was
the absolute best part of my week so far.
It was a fun one, man. People were throwing down. It was cool.
Should we move on to a new guitar?
Oh yeah, let me grab it.
That would be a cool thing to see here.
So I was on the Instagrams like a month ago, or maybe 6 weeks ago, and an acquaintance of ours in the band Juna had a beautiful guitar, and I just commented on it. Wow, that's a beautiful guitar. And then John Furlan, who made this guitar, sent me a message and he said, "Let's build you a guitar." And I was like, "Let's build me a guitar."
Yeah.
I've always wanted
guitar.
one.
You get a guitar.
Yeah, like I always wanted my own guitar. Like I think most guitar players probably do.
Yeah.
And like I wasn't sure like I didn't know him or anything. I just went and looked at his website. And I was like, oh my God, like his stuff is gorgeous, you know. So he and I had like probably an hour and a half conversation, and we just started with what kind of body, what kind of neck, what kind of tuners, what kind of pickguard, what kind of pickups, what kind of switches, what kind of strap buttons, everything, every single thing. So this is basically, it's based on a non-reverse Gibson Firebird, the body is at least. The neck
Which
is,
you've kind of had some other models, or at least some other offset models I've seen you have.
I like offsets a lot because of this thing. I have to wear a wristband when I play the Esquires because there's no bevel on it at all. It just shreds your arm. So it rolls back a little bit. Like that Chris Shiflett telly has a bevel like
there.
this. Yeah, which I like, but it's humbuckers, so I don't really careful, but those are pretty sick guitars.
Yeah.
But this also has like the tummy cut too. So it's just like it fits your body. Like it's made for a human, you know? So I've always...
Beautiful guitar making ugly music.
It's so sick. So it's an alder body. It's like I said, it's based on the Gibson Firebird body, but it's Fender scale, so like 25 and change. I'm not sure, 25 and a half or something. Yeah. Roasted maple neck, rosewood fretboard. The keys and the bridge are hip shot. Yeah, these are hip shot locking tuners, and it's a hip shot bridge. And then the pickups are this company called Greenville, and he makes a P90 called the Beauty Parlor is the model name. And he listened to our music and then just basically did a version of the Beauty Parlor P90s that are 5% overwound, so they're a little hotter than his regular pickups. This switch, this toggle switch, is sort of like a Les Paul switch or an SG switch, where down is the bridge, middle is both, and then up is the neck.
Okay.
So you can choose that. So right now it would be on the bridge pickup, and now this one is like the Esquire style wiring selector. So when it's down and it's just on this means that it's volume only. This means that it's volume and tone, and then this means that it's volume only again, but again, it like the other guitar has the capacitor, so there's treble roll off and a bass boost. So it's, I don't think it's ever been done before with these two things. I think it's
Can we
a new
hear
idea.
it?
Yeah.
I know that like your rig's kind of set up for the Esquire, but let's.
I think I might need to tune this guy. I think it might be super out of tune.
Had you given it any thought, just based on the body style, to go with maybe testing out or thinking about Firebird pickups? Have you ever messed around with those?
I just always wanted one because they look so beautiful, and like I've heard other people like. Sorry, I'm tuning while I'm saying this, but it's been in the trailer, so it's really out of whack. If you want to pretend like the looks don't matter, you're fooling yourself. It's like, well, just wear a paper bag every day, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you see my super cool outfit that I picked out today.
Yeah.
I figured that I would, I'm in Nashville, so you know how much I love Jason Isbell and Steven Wilson Jr. and a lot of the heavy hitters here, so I thought I would wear some hunting gear in an effort to fit in Nashville.
You'd look at.
So that's why I'm dressed like this today. I thought about it last night. I was like, I'm gonna wear my red flannel shirt and my orange camo hat like an asshole.
You're in town for the Americana Awards.
Kinda, man.
Perfect.
It's kind of like the whole thing with playing the Esquire guitar. It looks like I'm a chicken pick, and then you go. Boom. People are like, what is going on? If they've never seen our band or they don't know what it sounds like, it does not. I don't think you would see it coming.
Yeah,
sound,
no, it's a curveball.
I'll do this with a little Fuzz Factory.
Man.
Yeah, it's a big boy. And then if you go to this, like super dark position.
Kind of with the P90, it gives it more of almost a filter effect to it.
It's I mean the Nova Wah.
Yeah, but like it was not as apparent with the
it's
Esquire.
brighter. Yeah, it's brighter. This is more mellow sound. So it's kind of like the same thing with using the the dark position, the more mellow sound combined with the really aggressive fuzz. It's more detailed. It just sounds like it's fuller, but it's not fuller and darker. It's just there's more information somehow. It's richer sounding. I'm not really sure what the adjective is I'm looking for, but it's just, it has more detail to it. It's just really, it's really pleasing. It's not harsh at all. I mean, I was saying to you before we turned the camera on, that I think it might be too nice of a guitar for a dude like me, but I'll take it. Thank you, John. This guitar is beautiful. And
you said it was his suggestion to kind of go with the longer scale length.
Yeah, because we were talking about the tuning, the drop C tuning, and I have a Gibson SG Junior that I like a lot. I actually got that guitar because I watched a rig rundown with Charlie from Blackberry Smoke.
Oh yeah.
And he has a sick collection of guitars. He's an Atlanta dude too. And he had a white SG Junior, and I was like, that's a punk rock machine, man.
Yeah.
I want one of those. So I got that one. So I was playing it a lot. We played Psycho Las Vegas, the last one they did 2 years ago. And I brought that guitar. And that guitar I play high watts sometimes too. That guitar through the high watts is, again, it's the same thing of like combining dark and light together. You get, if it's all dark or all light, it's just not as good as combining the two things, you know?
Yeah.
And so it really works out well.
The juxtaposition is kind of where it really goes.
It's how everything interacts with each other. It's not, Casey, my bandmate, I talk about this a lot because he's a real pedal nut too. He builds pedals and stuff. And it's like, yeah, you might say, oh, this part doesn't matter that much, but like all 20 of these parts have a cumulative I matter.
Yeah.
You know, so it really is how things interact with each other. Once you can kind of get your head wrapped around that, you can start kind of going on the tone quest, you know?
Hey y'all, I'm John Bohlinger with Premier Guitar. So our rig rundowns for a long time now have been sponsored by D'Addario. And I'm thrilled to be using the D'Addario Expand Pedalboard. I've got this little guy that fits in my gig bag, and like many of you, I'm changing pedals all the time. I love having a board that can shrink as I'm shrinking my board or expand as I'm expanding it. And that's why I love the Expand pedal board. Their patented telescoping technology lets me instantly change the size of my pedals playground. It also features a unique cable management system and comes fitted with loops of Velcro, keeping everything neat and easy to swap. The two Expand versions comes with either 1 or 2 rows depending on your needs. So a big thanks to D'Addario. Now, let's get back to more rig rundowns.
Yeah.
Well, big part of the Tone Quest, and I've been interacting with these last night, late night, and now again today.
Yeah.
I had to say this is probably the only rig rundown except for Sleep with Matt Pike,
Yeah.
where I have an earplug in because it's warranted.
Yeah.
But tell me about how you landed on these two beautiful things.
Oh, well, first I want to say shout out to Cody Willis, who's playing drums in High on Fire now. He's our
dude.
homie. The first,
He's one of my favorites.
he's a monster.
Yeah.
The first European tour we ever did was with his band Big Business. They took us out there, and he's been super cool, man. When all the stuff happened with our drummer Douglas, he's the first person I called, like, dude, we need somebody, you know. And he's a monster, and he's a real nice dude too. So anyway, these are both super leads. They're both Marshall super leads. People always ask me about the tape, and I don't really have an answer for it anymore. I just remember seeing like Nirvana had tape on their Marshall, so I was like, I'm gonna also do that.
Yeah.
That's probably why. I thought about it a lot, because people, remember when Harmony Central was like the big online forum for pedals and stuff?
I know you were active on there.
Obsessed with it, man. Yeah, that's kind of right when I got it. I didn't even have a computer before that. So like the dawn of the boutique pedal age and me owning my first computer, just, so I went in deep. So they would always tease me about it. But what a cool community of people that was. Anyway, they're both super leads, Marshall super leads. This one we used to think was a 68 because of the three paddle switches, and also has 4 outputs in the back. And someone filed the serial number off of it before I got it. But Jeff Bakos, who's the tech in Atlanta who works on these amps, pulled the chassis out of the head shell and actually got the serial number off of that. So it's a 73.
Okay.
It's my favorite amp I've ever owned. Like, I've owned a bunch of 800s, a bunch of JMPs. I had a Jubilee Marshall, a ton. As far as like, you know, big tube amps or whatever.
100 watters.
Yeah. But as soon as I got that, I was like, I'm done looking, man. It's like, it's beautiful. I have this one at half power, so I pulled 2 of the power tubes out of it and run it at 8 ohms into a 16 ohm cab. When I was running them both at 100, feedback's kind of a big part of the band, and there's a lot of sections where I'll just like little things like that and letting it feedback. And when they were both 100s, it'd have to be up really loud to get it to feedback. So I dropped that down to 50, and it feeds back sooner. So right now the JJ tubes are in there, but I don't really like JJ tubes.
34s
It's kind of a bummer. They're EL34s, yeah. But you know, since all the stuff happened with Russia, and Ukraine, and all that stuff, tube prices have just gotten out of control.
Yeah.
And I guess JJs are from the Czech Republic, so it's not quite as bad. They did go up a little bit, but it's not like the Mullers or the Tungsals are the ones that, you know,
and just availability of them,
yeah,
too.
they're just what's available, but I don't like them. They just put them in there. I don't like them. We're gonna come on when I get home. I'm gonna put them in my case as a backup, and then just go back to Mullers or Tungsals. The same preamp tubes are in there when I bought it from a buddy of mine. They're EI preamp tubes, which was the country from which they came no longer exists. They were from Yugoslavia, which isn't even a country anymore. Yeah, so those EI tubes are still in there. They're really nice. The one on the right is a reissue Super Lead. I think it's from like 2002 or 2003, something like that. If I could own another vintage one, I would, but I've looked them up online. They're like $5,000 a piece.
Yeah.
They're so expensive now. So yeah, I can't afford another vintage one. But
do you know what this one is, like a reissue, like it's trying to reincarnate, like what era of?
I don't know. I know that it is brighter than the regular Super Leads. I don't know why. I think it needs to have the bright capacitor clipped on it, but I didn't do that. I just go into the low input of channel 2, which is like super duper dark. It doesn't really come alive until you hit it with a clean boost, and then it really comes alive. But it's just been experimenting. I remember when I was a kid reading guitar magazines and stuff, and I saw that it was either Billy Corgan or Jay Mascis, or maybe both of them, were talking about going into the low input and using fuzz. Because you think when you're a kid, you're like, high input, high energy rock and roll, like, but it's not. No, the low input sounds better with fuzz. If you're just going straight into the amp, sure, you high input, you know, jumper it, all that stuff. But if you're using pedals, the low input makes it sound so much better. And you can also step volume. Sometimes if you're already compressed and you because of gain, and then you put pedals on top of that, it's like it just gets smaller and smaller. You see bands do that sometimes, and they're playing the verse and they go into like the rock part, and it gets quieter because they don't know what they're doing.
It's like you're choking out the arteries.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I mean, the reason
calcifying
AC/DC sounds good is because you're hearing the output tubes. You're not hearing the preamp
They're
tubes
cooking.
crush. You're hearing the output tubes crush.
I can attest to that because when we did the rundown, me and Perry down in Atlanta with tech Trace Foster.
I watched it.
Yeah, like
I know.
they had an amp tech on tour with them because they were hitting those tubes so hard.
And they have that Japanese voltage
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, I watched. I'm one of you. Yeah.
What should we know about speakers on both these guys?
So these are both Marshall JCM 800 cabinets. They both have the 75s in all 8 speakers.
Okay.
I replaced one of these speakers. The other 7 are perfect. Never had to do anything else, and I beat the hell out of them. And they're fine. A friend of mine in Atlanta who has a company called Decibel, Decibel amps, Decibel cabinets, Decibel guitars, redid the grill cloth for me and changed the piping to gold so it matches the super leads, because the 800s have the white piping on them, so it's just for me.
Have you ever thought or experimented by having different speakers like to have
the X
contrasting?
patterns and stuff?
Or just even like 30s in this one and 75s or whatever the combination
I'm
might
worried
be.
that I would blow them because one of the main sounds of the band is a big muff with a ZVEX super hard on after it, and that's like a 30 decibel clean boost, and I have it up about halfway, if not more, some nights. So that's it. Besides the big muff being on 10, it also has another 15 decibels.
Is the super hard on hitting the muff, or is it the
Other way. Super hard on's after the muff. And I've used other clean boosts. Something about the MOSFET transistor that's in the super hard on, I think because you know how big muffs have a pronounced scooped mid-range.
Yeah.
I think something about that transistor boosts the mid-range. So again, it's like the light and the dark thing working together makes something that wouldn't exist on its own. And it's really just accidents. It's not like there's some master plan. It's just, you experiment, and I'm obsessed with this stuff, so you just try different stuff and you're like, oh, that's different. And that's exactly what happened. So that's on literally every song in the band is that big muff clean boost. There is not a song we've recorded that doesn't have that sound on it.
Damn.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to get back on the Esquire and then we can go through the pedalboard?
Yeah.
Let's do that.
I should also say that this guitar was built by my friend Jason in Atlanta. He has a company called Earth Guitars, and it's obviously an Esquire style guitar, but it's a little different in that it's made out of pine. So it's like, I think 4.5 pounds. It's the lightest guitar I've ever played. The pickup is the same as the one we talked about earlier. It's the Mark Knopfler pickup by Harry Husel. Electronics are the same. The neck, I believe, is maple, again with rosewood. And then it has the same hip shot tuners, same Amazon bridge. And it's crazy how light it is. When I put on any other guitar, I'm like, ugh, boat anchor. And they're not even Les Pauls or anything, but I'm just so used to this, being so light.
Even another Telly.
Yeah, absolutely. My backup, that black one is, it's like a Alder, I guess.
Yeah, Asher Alder.
Yeah, and it's too heavy. This is awesome. I just love it.
Before we do, I know people want to maybe get a shout out or get a clarification. What cable are you using with the Coily?
This is a Bullet Coily cable.
Okay.
Much like that Furlan guitar, the first thing I was concerned with was, does it look cool or not? I know how superficial that is, so I just thought they looked cool, but then having played with them, I realized that because it is a 30-foot cable, it attenuates some top end, and it's a very bright guitar. They're very bright amps. You need to pull back on that a little bit, and believe it or not, it helps. When I've used a straight, a 10-foot cable or something, it's brighter. I don't want it to be brighter. So it actually, even though I got it just because I thought it looked cool, it actually is functional as well as fashionable.
Now, could we have you do a quick A/B of the horse sound with the 2 pedals on, which is kind of constant, and then just the amps, so we can just kind of hear what that does to the amps?
Yeah, so this switcher I have on here, right here, is a Loop Master switcher, and it's called a clean dirty switcher. So it has a master input and a master output, and then send and receive for 2 different loops. So I have an A loop and a B loop. A loop I use for verses, bridges, intros, outros. A loop has the majority of the pedals in it. The B loop only has the big muff, which this is a Accent You Shall Receive clone of the Bubble Font Green Russian Softtech muff. the Electro-Harmonix Pog, and then the ZVEX super hard-on. So those three are in that loop. Everything else is in the A loop. So A loop, obviously very loud. B loop is even louder.
Are you doing that just so you can have that quick A to B kind of switch contrast?
One switch.
Okay.
So I would have to turn off
Off.
the Fuzz Factory, turn on the Big Muff, turn on the super hard-on, all at once. And I only have 2 legs. So there's just, I used to use 2 of those. I figured this out like in my head before I did it. Like I used 2 of those Morley like AV switchers.
AV, yeah.
And basically did the same thing, but then I realized that somebody made something that I needed, and I have 2 or 3 of these. I've got the Screddy one as well in my case, just in case these fail, because you can see how beat up it is. It gets stepped on a whole lot. That's the 3rd or 4th switch that's been in there. Actually, when somebody rewired the switch, they flipped something, so I have to have an R there for receive and send, because those are flipped. But it's fine, whatever. I figured it out.
Dude, can we hear a little bit more on Loop B, just because that sound is like my favorite?
Yeah, I'll do that, and then I'll turn the octave on as well.
Okay.
It was in the case, so it's not quite set the way it's supposed to be. I have to have these little pieces of tape. A friend of mine came over, and I have a ton of pedals in my house, and she was like, "Why are all those cues on your pedals?" And I was like, "They're not cues. They're settings. They look like cues, though." So
yeah.
Anyway.
That's a reason for me to get out of bed every day, is to hear that sound.
My friend of mine calls it the jet engine. He's like, what is it when you hit that jet engine? I'm like, that's accurate.
Yeah.
But it sounds like, and I realize how ridiculous it is, but like it makes me so happy. Hearing that sound, you're just like, yeah.
I'm alive.
Yeah, man, absolutely. It's a cool sound, and yeah.
Kind of be our leader here through Tone Town and talk to us about the rest of the pedals.
Sure.
How you're using them.
Like I said, everything comes out of this switcher, the A loop and the B loop.
Okay.
The first thing in the A loop is this ZVEX Fuzz Factory that they made for the band. So it's they had approached us about doing one because I've had a Fuzz Factory on my board. I bought one, I think, in maybe 2011 or 2010, and I've 100% of the time I've had that on my board since then. There's nothing else like it. And people try and say like, oh, it's unusable. And it's like, you just don't know how to use it.
Yeah.
And it's not unusable. It's very controllable. I mean, how is that unusable? It gates perfectly. People just don't understand the controls.
So then maybe enlighten us.
Yeah. So
in terms of like how you use it and find it usable.
For sure. I always have the drive and the stability control all the way up at 10. And then volume is to taste. Usually it's about between 9, 10 o'clock, somewhere in there. But the real sorcery of this pedal is the way the gate and the comp controls work together. So I basically turn the gate all the way up and then back it off until it opens, and then a hair close. So just right on the edge of where it closes. And then the comp kind of works like a tone control. It'll get brighter or darker depending on where you put it. But there's a trade-off, because when you turn the comp up, the gate will also open sooner. So you have to kind of find that sweet spot with the two of them. And it's just the coolest circuit. There's no other pedal like it. I don't know the specifics of what makes it so unique, but I can just tell that it's not like it's not a fuzz face. People think it is. It's not, man. So when they talked to us about doing one, because I just yell it from the mountaintops about what a great pedal it is, and they got wind of that, and they were like, let's make you one. I was like, yeah. I keep saying I don't need my own signature Marshall, which will never happen anyway, but I don't care. I have my own ZVEX pedal.
Yeah.
It's
well, it turns any
it's a dream come
amp
true.
into a Marshall.
Yeah,
or you know what I
beautiful.
mean? It could, that's in some ways better, because what the pedal can do and how it can
doing the heavy
manipulate.
lifting.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. When I got into the boutique stuff, as we were talking about a moment ago, I could tell he was one of the OGs of that whole world. And there's a couple other, folks who are building pedals around that time too, but he's kind of like, the mayor of Tone Town. And yeah, I'm so flattered by it. It's really cool that I get my own one. So they had sent one, Thomas, who handles like, the builds and stuff, sent me a prototype with a Motorola, a pair of Motorola transistors that were silicon transistors. It was a little too harsh for my needs because I have such a bright guitar and bright amps. So then he sent me another one that had sockets in it, and then 4 pairs of transistors, the regular 2N404s that they use in the Fuzz factories. We wanted to do something different, but he sent those anyway just to see. And then those Motorola ones. And then I can't remember what the third one was, but the fourth one is the one I ended up going with, which are RCA germanium military surplus transistors. And they're big too, they're big fatties. So those, that's what's in there now. And then we did a run of them on our like big cartel page and sold them all fast, which is awesome. So you cannot buy this now, I'm sorry. It does not exist anymore. But I have one. That's number 01.
That's rad.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. The next one is Devi Ever Sodomizer, which is actually the Dwarfcraft version of the Devi Ever pedals. Devi was definitely part of that first wave of boutique stuff too. I've got a ton of her stuff. I've got a US Fuzz, I have a vintage Fuzz Master, I have the Bit Legend of Fuzz, and this Sodomizer.
How many Fuzz pedals do you think you have?
Probably 100.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably 75, 100, something like that. I probably got about 200 pedals, but half of them are Fuzz.
Fuzz, yeah.
When we're done here, I'm gonna peruse the store. Believe it, man, it's a sickness. So the Sodomizer is, it sort of sounds like a Super Fuzz, where it has like that real, like Fu Manchu uses Super Fuzz all the time. It's a real raspy kind of sound, and by itself it sounds a little strange, but if you use it in the context of a band, it sounds amazing. Queens of the Stone Age do it all the time too, where they'll have like, if you were to isolate it, you'd be like, that sounds like shit.
Yeah.
But you put it in the context of the band and it's beautiful because you're mixing the lo-fi and the hi-fi together. Sodomizer, super gated also. So it's got that chewiness that the Super Fuzz has, but from what I understand, it has some sort of Big Muff characteristics as well. I don't know if it's the 4 transistors. I've honestly never even opened it up and looked at it, but I keep that number 2 spot on my board is always like the fun fuzz, the flavor fuzz that I use for like the dropout parts and stuff. And I had a different one on there when we were practicing for this tour, but that one made its way back on there. Yeah, it's great. The next one is the Beetronics Swarm, which I played a moment ago. I'll play it again though.
Yeah, that sound is, it's something either like crashing in that Excite bike, or getting taken down in that Top Gun, the arcade game where you sat in it. And
there's something bit crushy about it.
I feel very akin to some type of like Nintendo game.
Yeah, I mean it's doing that bit crush thing. But there's a song on the record called Sicko that we use this pedal on. It's like.
Kind of come across that functionality of the pedal and the guitar and the whole equation, and then like I gotta shoehorn this into a song.
Yes.
Yeah.
It took a while to figure this out because the controls are not. I mean, the upper octave is called Queen. It's like just call it upper octave, but it's and it's like so it's difficult to figure out just by looking at it because they're named all these. But that's part of the appeal. I mean, even their circuit board is like beautiful. It looks like a honeycomb. Like they don't miss a beat.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're
dialed in.
Beetronics is badass. I've got 3 of their pedals. Yeah, they're really cool. But it does that one thing, and you see this little piece of tape on it. I have to like this control gives it that dive bomb thing, and if I put it in noon, it won't do it as much. But this is like the dive bomb thing. But it took me a while, so I've got the octave all the way up. The worker is the name of the control. That's like just the fuzz sound, the no octave. And drone is the low octave, but I have that turned off. And then there's like a selector switch. It's called Species. It's like, dude, come on, give me something.
Yeah.
That's on 4. If you own one, try 4, I guess. I mean, they're insane, but it's like, There are other pedals that do it. Like we talked about, the Data Corruptor is awesome. I use the Data Corruptor on a Black Sabbath cover we did. It's killer, and I love it. But I was Tom Tapley, who owns a studio downstairs. It's Mastodon Studio, basically, downstairs from our practice space. He's like recorded Bruce Springsteen and Pearl Jam and like household names. And he's like, "What's up, dude?" And you're like, friends with this guy. It's crazy. He had one at his studio, and I'd always wanted to try one. So he let me borrow it, and I brought it home, and I bought one like 2 days later. And then about a week after that, I wanted a fancy one. So I couldn't just have the regular one. I had to get the fancy color one. So
It's funny because like the clinician side of my brain would want something the more practical in terms of the labeling, but
Right.
part of me understand like the freedom is allowed based on the fact that you don't know what you're doing with the knobs.
Yeah.
So then you're just interacting with the pedal rather than trying
Right.
to base on like, well, I know this is the treble or whatever
Yeah.
that is, where that you don't know what's going to happen. So you're almost having to just be conscious or being like more present.
yeah, you
with
got
you and the pedal.
engage with it for sure.
Yeah.
You can't just set it. Yeah, it's like that
And get some happy accidents.
serendipity.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you happen upon something, you're like, this is so cool.
Yeah. I need
Yeah,
the
it's a great
species.
pedal. Yeah.
All right. So what's next to it?
Then next to that is the Keeley. Man, my board is really dirty. There's like dust all over it. We've been playing show after show after show. Keeley Nova Wah. I think Keeley is also one of the OGs of the sort of boutique
gonna
pedal
say, if he-
explosion. He doesn't get the credit he deserves too, because he has some killer pedals.
If Zach is like mayor of Tone Town, then I would say, you know, Keeley is like the
probably the sheriff.
moderator,
I was gonna say
being like the
sheriff,
mod
but
guy.
yeah.
He's like, you know, he's the guy that just started tweaking it with everything.
Yeah, man, he's got some super cool designs.
Yeah.
I got that pedal because I was using like a regular Dunlop Crybaby wah and just turning it on and then finding the spot in the sweep that I liked, and that came from listening to Queens of the Stone Age. And then I realized that they made cocked wah pedals, and I got a Dunlop Q-Zone, but I couldn't get a regular one, so I had to get one of the Kerry King ones, and it's got like all the tribal stuff on it. It's just not for me. So, but you know, it sounds awesome. So, but then this guitar store opened by my apartment in Atlanta, and I was friends with the dude who worked there, and he would just like on the sly let me try stuff, let me bring it home, like just don't scratch it or whatever. So I tried one, and then I didn't even bring it back to him. I just gave him the money. So it's a cocked wah pedal, and it has 2 independent sweeps that you can set, so you can have 2 different tones.
Oh, that's nice.
And then the toggle switch controls the bass response. I generally keep the red one like that and the green one like that. So the red one is the green one. That's just by itself. I never use it by itself. I always use it with fuzz. Quiet as a mouse. It's like super loud, but then it just gate shuts, man.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the gates. The ubiquitous Boss TU2. I don't have a TU3. I have a TU2 because
Yeah.
I'm old. And it works. They're built like a tank, man. There's a reason they're a standard. I mean, you see these pro boards and stuff. It's all Boss, Electro-Harmonix.
Yeah.
It's all off-the-shelf stuff, man. They're built like a tank.
Yeah, there's a reason they were on everyone's board.
Absolutely. And I've thought about like getting one that doesn't have a buffer in it, because I know there's a buffer in that. But the reason I have it in this order is because I put my overdrive pedal, usually I have 2, not just 1, directly after that tuner, because the buffer in the tuner makes the overdrive sound better. Crazy. But if you put it somewhere else in the chain further, it doesn't have the same effect. If you put it right after the tuner, it pushes the overdrive a little bit more. And you wouldn't hear it in a bedroom with a little amp, but with 150 watts and 2 412s, you hear it.
Yeah.
You hear the difference, man. It's pretty
You
wild.
hear a lot of stuff with those.
until you're deaf and they don't hear anything. So the overdrive that's on here now is the Spiral Effects yellow overdrive. Tom Cram, who I'm sure a lot of people who watch these rig rundowns know, works for Digitech Dunlop, and then he also started his own company called Spiral Effects, and he's in Salt Lake City, and he came to a show in Salt Lake City that we played, and we hit it off, and he's really nice and everything, and he sent this. It's based on the DoD 250 overdrive, which is a killer sound.
Yeah.
Which, from what I understand, according to my bandmate at least, it's a hop, skip, and a jump away from like a MXR Distortion Plus. It's a pretty similar circuit. Not the same. It's similar, but I have one of those. Casey has my vert. I have a DoD 250, but I was like, "Do you want to try
know a
this?"
guy.
And now it's just been on his board for 8 years, so it's kind of his now. Anyway, It's a really beautiful natural sounding overdrive. I have little pieces of tape on it because I don't wear my glasses on stage. I also have pieces of Gorilla Tape on my neck here because I just can't see. And I don't want to wear my glasses on stage because like if I wear like a thing to keep them on, then they get fogged up like a fucking nerd. So like I can't wear them, man.
That'd be the worst. Just someone out in the
Dude.
crowd just yelling at you, nerd.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Like the Simpsons college episode, nerds. It's like 36 years old. Yeah, so I'll play that a little bit. Still pretty tough, but not as tough as the Fuzzes. Very full sounding, but it really, I hate to use buzzwords and stuff, but it really is like the amp sounding. It's natural. I use a Exotic Effects AC Boost a lot as well, and that's similar in that it sounds like an amp that's cooking, which is what I want of an overdrive. I also usually have a Bondi Sick-Az on my board because it's like a Klon style, which is something different. It's cleaner than the Spiral or the Exotic AC Booster, but it has the bass. The mid sort of hump, which really sounds nice, and it's got like this real clarity too, that when you're like palm muting stuff, it's just really sharp, really detailed. This is a little more mushy, but I like the mushiness. I had to make 13 pedals is a small board for me. I had to make a small board just for tour because I don't want to troubleshoot something big. I have a just Boss NF1 noise gate after all the drive pedals. I remember seeing Steve Albini when I was a kid, and he had a harmonic percolator and a noise gate, and that's it. And I was like, that is a sick tone. So I was like, let me get one of those and figure out what he's doing. And I've had some of the other ones too. Some of the I've had the Smart Gate and some like fancier ones, but I always go back to this one. It's so easy. I have the decay all the way down. The sensitivity, I just open up until it starts making noise, and then same thing with the gate on the Fuzz Factory, come down a little bit from there. So, but I can't keep that on. Like if I'm doing something like you need that to go, you get that. But if you need a note to ring, you can't have the gate on. But otherwise, bye. I can't have that. I can't have it. Yeah, made me nuts. So next is this Alexander Effects. It's a Radical Delay Plus 2. It is a delay, obviously. I also have all the little cues on here, so I know how to set it because it's too complicated for a dude like me, but it really sounds nice. And I just use it as a long delay. That's it. But it also does like a really cool, if I set it differently, like a real cool short delay, and it has like that Gary Newman kind of new wave kind of sound. Is really cool, where it just slaps back real fast. It's a really nice sound. So that's the end of the A loop. I'll get to that guy there in a second. And then the B loop is the Big Muff, the Accent You Shall Receive bubble font clone. I have a bubble font. It's this big. It sounds fantastic. I use it all the time, but the jacks on the back are chintzy, and one of them snapped off, and I was like, I can't rely on this. And it was like a week before we had to leave for tour, so I just, asked the internet, hey, who makes a good one? And I've played a lot of the clones. I'm not gonna denigrate anyone who makes a clone, but I don't like any of them. And then this dude who works for Accent Shops, he was like, trust me, it's good. And I was like, it was like $60, $70, like it was cheap. He mailed me one, and yeah, that's
that little mini gray one.
People are like, why don't you have a Big Muff on your board? I'm like, see the smallest pedal on my board? Yeah. That's a Big Muff.
I got a small Muff.
But dad files.
I'm a dad, so it works.
After dark. Yeah, it's incredible. That by itself, sorry, that's actually with the clean boost by itself. Still sounds nice, but with the clean boost on top of it, takes a little bit of the top end off, and it's that Spinal Tap thing. It's just one more.
Yeah,
just
baby.
one more, and it's true. And then the Pog is like I believe it's called the Micro Pog. I just got a Pog 2. I've wanted one for a long time. And
that's the one with the sliders, right?
Yeah. They just made the Pog 3, just came out too, like a couple weeks ago. But when you and I did the remote rig rundown during COVID, they hit me up, Electro-Harmonix, like a week later, and they were like, hey, we saw your thing. you know, we want to send you some stuff. And they sent me this Super Ego pedal, and they also sent a ring thing, which is incredible. It's weird. It does, I mean, it's a ring modulator, but it does like a really convincing octave down, like tracks perfectly. I'm sure it's the same technology that's in the Pogs, because I've got a bunch of octave pedals, and nothing tracks as good as the Pog, nothing. Yeah. It's like just accurate as can be. So I hit them up again recently because I saw a demo for the micro synth that blew my mind, and I was like, can I have a micro synth? And so they sent me one of those, and they also sent a Pog 2, which I'm very excited about. But I just got it, and it's pretty complicated, so I didn't want to figure it out on the road. So when I get home, I'm sure I'll spend a week with that thing.
I don't know if you saw the rundown with Cross's Sean Lopez, Gino's sideband. He has a micro synth in his rig, and that was so kind of the heartbeat of everything. I know he has a Fractal and a bunch of other stuff, but that's like, that specific pedal he bought was kind of like the meat of why his sound is what it is.
It's a beautiful sound. It does a couple different things. There's a really, just a guy who made a demo. He's not affiliated with any company or anything, and I sent it to Electro-Harmonix. I was like, have you seen this demo? You need to throw him a pedal or something, because I was about to buy one. I was on Reverb looking at microsense. I was like, wait a minute, I got Electro-Harmonix email. I'm just gonna hit them up. He didn't even flinch. Like 3 days later, I had him. I was like, yes, free pedals. So yeah, I guess that's about it for the pedal. Oh no, the Super Ego. So I use this globally, meaning it comes out of the master out of the switcher and goes to this before it goes to the amps. And this has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 knobs and 3 switches, and I use one of them. I had a freeze for a long time, just for like, because it freezes a note, and I do that in between songs. I'm sure you saw me do it last night, so I can tune and it's not a total silence. But the freeze that I have has been on my board for 10 years, and the output jack got a little wonky, and it was like intermittent at practice, and then I remembered that this has the freeze as part of its circuit, so that's all I'm using it for, is the freeze. It does some really cool stuff though, so that you can freeze a note and then like modulate it. So you can do like a phase, or you can do like a trend. Yeah, it's a really pleasing pedal. I just haven't figured it out yet. Same thing. It's just I have so many.
You have so many pedals. It's
oh my God.
It's a part-time job.
It's a good thing I don't have a job, because I would probably get fired because I'd be fooling with this stuff all day. But yeah, I will straight up stay up late, just put something on Netflix or whatever, and I've got like in my living room, I've got a coffee table that ambulates, I guess is the word, and I'll just put pedals up on it and just put my headphones on and just do 3 a.m.
Just lose yourself.
Yeah, absolutely, like often. Yeah.
Well, just so people know at home, both amps are getting the effects, right? And they're running into the front of the amp, no effects loops or anything? No, it's, I should also mention the, underneath the board, there's one of those Laley. It's I was watching one of your rig rundowns. I'm trying to think who it was. It might have been Joe Bonamassa. Is that how you pronounce his name? Yeah.
Yeah, his gear collection is insane. I think he had one on his board. And I was just using before, just like a little passive loop master switcher, and I was getting a lot of noise, and that lately has got a ground loop switch. So if you are getting some noise,
quick
get rid of it fast. Yeah, they're really cool. It's under my board, though, so you can't see it. And then I'm using the Chox DC, it's pronounced Chox, right? CIO.
Yeah, that's how I believe it is.
CIOCKS or CIOKS? I believe it's Chox. It's Poland, I believe. The DC10 power supply. It's great. It's got world voltage. You can switch it. I don't have to switch out power supply or get a step down transformer when we're playing in Europe or UK or Australia or whatever. So yeah, that's been very helpful too. Yeah, and that's pretty much it, I think.
And I asked you before we start rolling, but I'll ask you here for official sake. No batteries, because normally sometimes you will use 9 volts, right?
Yeah, I will definitely use carbon zinc 9 volts in fuzz pedals only. I don't want to use them in anything else, but it's one of those things again where people want to say like there's a negligible difference, but I hear it, and that's all that matters.
Yeah.
I hear the difference. And ask Zachary Vex. He ships them with carbon zinc for a reason, dude. They sound better for fuzz pedals. I'm not sure what it is. I think it's when it's coming from the wall, it's not a constant voltage. It fluctuates.
pulse, yeah.
Yeah, but a battery is a constant source. Even if it's degrading, it's still constant. Even
Until
if it's
it's
at
not.
8 volts instead of 9, right? They just sound better. But on tour, I can't be bothered changing batteries all the time because once they start degrading, you don't know it's degrading. It just sounds worse.
Yeah.
You know, or some people would say better. Some people like drained batteries,
Yeah.
but like that's just I can't be bothered, man. I got a hotel that I got to book. We got to drive 8 hours. We got to come on.
Speaking of that, like it wasn't able to happen yesterday before the show, but you were kind enough to make this kind of detour before you guys head on to your next show.
Oh, it's not. I'm so flattered that we get to do it. It's not a detour at all, man. I like the first time we spoke. I've watched these for years, and people have been like, "Hey, man, you really should do a rig rundown." It's like then you guys should really open for Metallica. It's like, yeah, we should. Like, what do you? That's not how it works, man. Like, yeah, I would love to do one, but you just. You know how it is, you can't go to people and with your hand out and say, help me. You've got to just keep plugging away and they'll come to you.
Yeah.
But you got to do the work.
You just got to pretend like you didn't want it, and then, we came knocking.
Thank you, Chris.
Well, I got one question before you head on the road. I believe you're heading to Memphis?
Memphis tomorrow,
Yeah. Got to get some barbecue.
I love Memphis. Bryant's, man. It's
But,
a breakfast place in Memphis. It's really good.
What cover was the most fun to bastardize in a whore's way when it came to either Cornucopia or Have a Drink on Me?
Well,
Sabbath or AC/DC?
We did those two fairly recently for the same fella. But prior to that, and I like both those songs, and I love both those bands, but prior to that, we did a cover of Jumping Someone Else's Train by The Cure. And it's my favorite cover we've ever done. It just sounds like Harvey Milk. It's just the same thing we did with those two other covers. We just tuned it down, slowed it down, made it gnarly. And I love The Cure, man. We played Roskilde Festival in Denmark right before COVID, and they were the headliner of the festival or whatever. And like I got to like watch them play, and I was like not a fan in the crowd. I was like on the team kinda, and it was like I arrived. It was really cool.
Well, I again thank you for your time, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
and,
I
we'll
love
keep
this stuff.
talking tone for years, buddy.
Yeah, for sure.
See you next time.
Thanks, buddy.
Everyone stay safe, and come check out Eastside Music Supply.